Welcome, everyone. I'm your co host, Jackson Ferguson, joined by my co host and professional basketball player, Axel Louisan. In this episode of the Focus, Freedom, and Flow podcast, you can add an extra F for failure. We're going to learn how to fail better with Dr. Ashley Kuchar. Ashley is a former collegiate basketball player, and today she's a mental performance coach. She's completed her PhD in educational psychology at the University of Texas. She's founded the Fail Better training and created the Reset Resilience program that hundreds of coaches and athletes have benefited from. So, Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time with us and connecting with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be on with y'all. I love the add the F for failure. That's so good.
Yeah, and you're connecting with Switzerland, with Europe, so that's great. Thanks. And maybe so before we lose too much of the audience because a lot of us have been taught that failing is a bad thing. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why your training is called Fail Better?
I will also admit I also don't like to fail, and there's a reason I built a whole business around this, right? And so failure is not a fun thing, and there's so much we can learn from it. But yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a mental performance coach. I'm an educator. I teach at the University of Texas at Austin, and a speaker, and I help critical athletes learn how to reset and fail better. And just to give you like a little bit of my background, I grew up, as an athlete. I think every athlete avoids failure, and coaches, we're taught to strive for success. And I had a really high fear of failure. And then everything shifted for me in college when I was taking a psychology class and had a professor that was inviting me to lean into my imperfections, which was new and uncomfortable. And I figured if I went to graduate school and learned about it for 5 years, I'll get a PhD and then taught it for the rest of my life. Someday I would get it and understand it. And so I really want to destigmatize failure. It's something we all experience, and there's so much power in actually turning towards it. And so that's where we get the name Fail Better Training.
Cool. And maybe what's your the biggest failure in your life that has turned out to be something positive? Is there something you can share?
Yeah, I think I was reflecting on this a little bit, and I think one of the biggest failures was not playing Division 1 basketball.
Hmm.
I knew I was good enough. I didn't understand anything about recruitment, which it's a different time now with these what these athletes are going through. But I knew I was good enough, and also so when I failed going to a Division 2 school, but it's what set me on this path. That ended up being the perfect thing for me. I got to go to a small school, a really high level Division 2, where we were beating a lot of Division 1s, which was really nice. I got to start and play right away. Had a great team, and then I got to take these classes in a small school where still today my professors will reach out to me. I have a close connection with them. And I mentioned this class. I took a stereotyping and compassion class in my undergrad, and that, I mean, my undergrad supervisor changed my life. I knew that I wanted to go into some space of teaching, coaching. I had no idea that this is what I would be doing, but failing, which I my original story was, I guess I'm not good enough, to then, oh wow, I'm actually a better basketball player for it. It still hurts my pride, but I was a better basketball player for it. I got the education that I needed at this wonderful school. I built some really wonderful connections, and now it's set me on this path. It totally changed everything for me, and I'm so grateful that I didn't go to a big school for my undergrad. It was really nice doing that for grad school, I will say, to get a little bit of the best of both worlds. But I would say that's probably one of the biggest failures that has been one of the biggest blessings in my life.
And is there maybe further on a failure where right when as you were failing, what you shared was kind of, I guess, reflecting back on it. But now, is there a failure you've been through that while you're in it, your mind is able to see it as something maybe positive?
Yeah, I think that's a big reframe, right? It's something that And I would say that there can be both and, right? I can not enjoy failure and see it as a really big opportunity to learn and grow, right? I think building a business can be a really challenging thing. And so it feels like you're hitting failure all the time, right? Reaching out to different clients or trying to have conversations and, building things and hoping that you get the return on investment and reach the people that you want to reach. And so I think in those moments, there's multiple stories that are hitting me at the same time. Sometimes the initial reaction is that I'm not good enough. Still to this day, that's going to be the initial hit. And at the same time, I can get my bearings and get my grounding and be like, oh, why am I doing this thing, right? How do I stick to what my values are? How do I, what am I learning from this, right? What's the discipline I'm learning? Is there ways that I can shift? And so I think that's kind of a general sense of, being faced with roadblocks and setbacks and seeing them both as a challenge and a way that you can learn and grow.
And so I guess that is a training. That's also what we trying to share here in Switzerland to see that mental training is actually a training because it's not just a quick fix. There's no miracle magic formula. And so what you teach now, I think there's a mindfulness and self-compassion class. You have that, and then you also have your reset program. So maybe can you talk a little bit about all that?
Yeah, yeah. So the reset program, well, maybe the mindfulness. I'm teaching a mindfulness and self compassion class at UT Austin,
Okay.
and that was originally built by Dr. Kristen Neff, who was my graduate supervisor, and it's wonderful. It's a big class, 100 or so undergraduate students, and then also the graduate level. That's really around understanding not just conceptually mindfulness, self compassion, and compassion for others, but also how do we actually practice it and apply it. And then the reset program kind of stems from some of this self-compassion work. So Kristen Neff and Chris Germer created a program called Mindful Self-Compassion, which I found to be very, very powerful. And also I was really resistant to it. I mean, if there's athletes listening to this, they hear that word self-compassion, you're going to want to turn your brains off. I know it. I know you hear the word and you want to turn off. So did I, right? So did I. And it's so, so powerful. It's such a powerful concept. Athletes are known, and coaches are known for being really hard, right? They're really critical, really perfectionistic, which has some value, and also it has huge, huge drawbacks. It leads to more fear of failure. It leads to more disconnection. It leads to poorer performance. And so there's this idea in sports that I have to be hard on myself in order to succeed. And self compassion totally combats that and says, I don't think you do. You could actually be encouraging to yourself. And so there's so much resistance around that concept and that idea, even for myself as I was studying it, feeling the benefits of it. And so I created the Reset program. And Reset takes those ideas of self-compassion, translates them into resilience, helping athletes understand what self-compassion actually means without maybe even using that word, and understanding how can I build mental toughness? How do I build resilience? How do I build this adaptability and flexibility so that when challenges come at me, I'm not just trying to tough it out. I have 5 different tools in my tool belt that I can use to tackle this problem. And so the Reset program it's my baby. I love it. It's growing, and it's been amazing to see that. Yes, it's not a quick fix, and also there are some really quick tips that can shift your mindset. My whole life changed in an instant from one exercise, and it is a practice, like you said, where it doesn't just change overnight and then boom, you have it figured out, just like in sports. But there are times in sports where suddenly you've been practicing something and then it just makes sense. You can do it.
Can you share more about that? So you said there's one exercise that really
Yeah,
changed your life?
yeah. So one of the kind of like introductory exercises is it's around self talk and thinking about when you are struggling or you make a mistake, how do you talk to yourself? Most athletes, I'm gonna say 90%. 90% are negative. The tone is harsh, right? I suck. I'm not good enough. This is the worst. Why am I even playing? Just because they're missing shots. Then, if you think about their teammates that they really care about, when their teammates are struggling, how do they treat them? They say, hey man, you got it. It's okay. Keep shooting. It's not that big of a deal. Just move on. It's totally different. They're encouraging, they're kind. They still want to hold them accountable though. And so to see that stark difference, I did some version of that in my undergrad where took it one step further. I was imagining the things that I say to myself when I mess up. And then I was imagining overhearing my mom saying those things out loud to herself. And that shook me because it didn't make any sense. Why would that be helpful to say that you're stupid and you're not good enough and you never, it's just not helpful to any degree. But when I said it to myself, I thought it was. And then when I saw it on another person, I realized, wait a second, hold on. This is a perspective shift. And so I think that perspective shift is first recognizing that the harsh criticism isn't serving you as well as you think. There is a better way that doesn't have to be so like soft and fluffy either. You don't have to just say you're amazing. Just keep
Yeah.
shooting. If you're taking stupid shots, you should adjust, right?
Mhm.
But we don't have to go about it in a really harsh and negative way.
So how do you find that right, not too nice, but what's really helpful? Yeah, how do you figure that out?
Yeah. So I usually ask athletes of if you think of an ideal coach for you, what are the characteristics of an ideal coach? And I'm curious, what would you two say, Axel and Jackson, when you think of your ideal coaches? What
Hmm.
are some characteristics of an ideal coach?
I guess the ideal coach would do like a gesture. He would like say, "Let's go, keep going." You know,
Mm-hmm.
I always had that in my mind when something bad will happen. I imagine someone do like this on my shoulder, and I keep going. And I also used to do like the same gesture, but on my leg, but myself. That's something. I'm sure if I find some old video of me playing, we can
That's
see
cool.
myself doing like this, just to support me. But I don't know about you, Jackson.
What's coming up for me is someone that's, I mean, of course, I'm gonna reference the kind of mindfulness stuff now because
Yeah.
it's still ingrained in me, but someone that's solid, that's present, and if you mess up, he's not gonna be like pissed off and angry at what you just did. Like you said, he holds you accountable, but you feel that he has your back. Like he's there for you. Like, yeah, you messed up, but I'm here for you. And yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I love that. And every athlete is going to have something a little bit different. And what's cool is that we already know what's the best for us. We just got to figure out how
Mm,
to access it. And so a question like that, you can think about, well, what are all the qualities that aren't super helpful for me? Right? You just mentioned that, Jackson, of like, well, they're not going to be really demeaning and criticize me, but they are going to say, hey, like that wasn't the best. They're going to help you fix it. And so I think with the athletes that I've asked, there's some balance of honesty and like wisdom. Like the coach got to know what they're talking about, right? And also some kindness and encouragement. They've got your back. And so I think that is it. How can with a critic? I like to think of the inner critic and the inner coach. The inner critic is harsh. It sees problems as bad. It sees you as bad. When you make those mistakes, it doesn't know any better. It sees like problems super zoomed in. That's the only thing that it can see. But if you step back, like I kind of think of like a referee. A referee is just calling people out all the time. Some good referees might coach a little bit, but referees aren't there to coach you. They're just there to tell you when you mess up, and that's like what the critic does. The problem is the critic then also tries to coach. It would be like a referee trying to coach during a game. It's just not its job, but it doesn't know that. A coach though is zoomed out. It's also going to call you out. They're also looking for mistakes and they want you to be your best. So they're trying to encourage you and figure out how can I actually motivate this kid to be the best that they can be. And so when you think about that balance, whether it's a real person or just those characteristics, you can usually find the words that you need in that moment that are actually going to help you feel better and play better.
and so then how is it once you figure out how to generate this inner coach in your mind? It's just repetition, and then so how do you work out on it? Do you work,
Mm-hmm.
is it just remembering it during the games and practice? Is there something to do outside of practice to train that?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of ways to practice. It could be something simple like you were just talking about, Axel, of like having a gesture. This is my reset gesture. I know when I mess up, I'm gonna pat myself on the shoulder. I'm gonna snap my fingers. I'm gonna tap my chest. That's my reminder of this is how I want to respond. So there are some of these kind of like quick things you can do in the moment, and the way to make those effective is doing the work outside, right? So it could be journaling. One of my favorite practices is to just like journal out, write out what is the critic telling me, actually give it space, and then what would the coach tell me? Because I think what happens a lot in the mindfulness world, or when we're trying to teach it to athletes, is it actually becomes an avoidance strategy. Right? Athletes can be messing up, they make mistakes, and we tell them like just breathe or be where your feet are. But really what the message that often is sent to them is ignore my feelings, ignore these problems, and I'm supposed to be positive. I'm not supposed to be thinking about these negative things. Let me be back in the present moment, right?
Yeah.
Versus what I like to do is like, hey, those negative thoughts, let's listen to them, see what they have to say, let's air it out, let it out, and then we can make a shift, right? Then that's going to actually allow you to be present and be where your feet are. So I think journaling can be really helpful. There's obviously some different imagery or meditation type exercises that you can do. It could be thinking about your strengths. What are the strengths? How can you leverage those? And so I think I like to work from the perspective of both how do we turn down the volume on your inner critic? How do we understand where it's coming from? What's its purpose? What does it need? What's it trying to tell you? And then give it some perspective. And then how do we build up this voice of the inner coach?
It seems like so we have to be our own coach, right? Inside of us. Would you say that we also have to be our own fan, our own like um, fan number one? I would say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? What do you think?
I think yes.
Yeah, and how come I like that the distinction between a coach and a fan. What do you see as that difference between like a coach and a fan?
Yeah, that leads to my second question. Like, um, what is the limit being our own fan? Because if I say to myself, "You're the best, you can do it, you're the best," what's the limit between yes, I can take myself of the best, but I'm not the best actually. If I would be the best, I would be, let's say, in the NBA, I would be the best player in the world, which is not the case. But at the same time, you have to be your own fan. So what's the limit, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's making me think too of like comparison a little bit, right? If we aren't our own fan, then we're usually our own critic, right? Like the critic is there, and we need the fan to kind of balance it out. And I think I did a little bit of research in my undergrad about like this is why I use the term coach. Is I asked the students and athletes when you think about this most helpful perspective, is it thinking about what would a friend say to you, what would a mentor say to you, and what would a coach say to you? And the athletes actually, or teammate, I said, they liked all three, but coach was the highest. And I think it's because coaches have that balance between being a fan and being honest. They're encouraging and they're going to hold you accountable versus friends sometimes, or fans, like you said, or like AI is just being like, you're amazing all the time, right? You could send it a really crappy draft and it's like, pretty good there. And so I think fans can do that too. It also depends on what kind of fan there is. You get to decide what kind of fan do you want to be. Do you want to be the one that's just cheering for you all the time? The parent that just says good job no matter what? Do you want the fan that's riding the highs and lows with you? And so I think each person's got to figure out what are those characteristics that matter the most to me, and how can I be my own best friend, best teammate, best fan, best coach. And there might be a time when you need the fan, and you're not ready for the coach. You're not ready for the feedback. You just need a little, pump up speech. So I think that both are valuable, but there are limitations because we also don't want to have overconfidence necessarily. We don't want to miss our weaknesses. We want to have this balance of being humble and confident without being cocky and unrealistic, right?
But I feel like in competition, in the high level, it seems like we have to fake it a little bit. Like say to ourselves and to everyone, I can do it. Not necessarily I'm the best, but I'm better than you. You know, you have to prove yourself and show yourself. But you also have to know that this is not true. It seems like you have to fake it a little bit. What do you think about this?
Yeah. I think I saw a quote recently that said, you pretend to fall asleep before you fall asleep, and everything we do is like we just fake it until it happens. You know, like you close your eyes and you're like, please fall asleep, and then you fall asleep. And it can be sometimes that with confidence too, where kind of like fake it until you become it. And I think that it's important to know when you need what, because there's times, like you said, in high level competition, and depending on the situation, like even if you take basketball as an example, on offense you need a different level of energy than you do on defense. Defense is like super high energy, you're working really really hard, you have control over it quite a bit. Offense, you might need to have a little bit more poise, you might need to be a little bit calmer depending on what you're doing. Football can be another thing too, right? Like that sport, you need high energy at those moments. And so I think confidence can be the same thing. And I think the other thing is like, what are you putting your confidence in? Because one of the biggest challenges I see with athletes is when they're feeling insecure and they're like, I need to have more confidence, I need to have more confidence. And so they try to tell themselves like, I'm awesome, I'm the best, and they're trying really hard to believe it. The challenge is you can't control the outcomes. You don't know if you're going to be the best in that race or in that game. But if you're focused on the things that you care the most about and you can control, so whether it's values like I'm going to work really really hard and I'm going to be the best teammate I can be. I know that I'm the best at that. You have control over that. Or you're focused on process focused things, right? Like your technique. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna shoot my shot and I hope it goes in, but I'm gonna focus on my follow through. If I snap my follow through, it's more likely to go in, and I know that I can control that. Then I feel like it's a more grounded sense of confidence. It's also more sustaining rather than this like junk food confidence that's like let me boost myself up for a couple minutes and then I'm gonna crash later because I don't actually believe it.
Coming back to something you said about self-confidence, self-compassion can be seen as maybe weak or, like, because I've had what crossed my mind is that I have several athletes that I work with ask me how to generate the killer instinct. To piggyback on what Axel said, like you're on the court, it's kill or be killed. I mean, the team in front of you. So maybe can you talk a little bit more about that? Like how can all we're talking about here help you be the killer that you need to be in competition?
Yeah. I think the first place that I always look is what's holding you back from that. What are the roadblocks? Is it you're scared of letting your teammates down? Is it scared that when you make a mistake, you're just inside your own head? Is it, the fear of failure or anxiety? And I think that what can happen when we turn towards those roadblocks and try to understand them, not pushing them away, but like actually understand them, then naturally the killer instinct gets to shine because right now it's getting overshadowed.
Hmm.
And I think what a lot of athletes want is they're trying to ignore these problems and just like just tell me what I need to do to develop this killer instinct, just tell me how to be confident. And it's like we need to look at all the things you're not confident in, right?
Hmm.
And we need to actually dissect them a little bit. I use this analogy, it's like having a monster under the bed. It's so scary. The monster under the bed is so scary if you never look because you don't know what it looks like. You don't know how big it is. But if you actually just like looked at the monster, it might be a cute little furry thing like on Monsters Inc., right?
Hmm.
And it might not be as scary as you think. And so also that little monster might be scared of you too, right? And so when we actually just shine a light on it, there's something beautiful that happens where it suddenly loses some power. So I think the first step for me is when athletes, I mean, my first question that I ask them is like, what challenges are you facing? What's coming up for you? What's your self talk like? How is it showing up in your body? Because when we get at the root of the problem, then it suddenly loses its power. So, for example, I have an athlete who is have a client, high school player who's scared of shooting, even though he knows he's a good shooter, because he's scared of looking stupid. He doesn't like, what if he airballs it? What if this happens?
Hmm.
Now, it's not really just about missing a shot, because we all miss shots. But when you peel back the layers of why are you worried about that? Well, what if I let my teammates down? Cool. What if they are actually let down? What does that mean? Well, then my coach might yell at me too. And if your coach yells at you, what does that mean? Well, then I'm not going to be able to play. And what if you don't play? Then I'm not going to. Then what am I even doing? I'm a basketball player. What if I get sat on the bench and then I don't get to make the next team the next year? Then who am I? And so, really, that anxiousness or the fear of failure is making this conclusion that if I miss one shot, it means I'm terrible at basketball and I'm going to get kicked off the team, which is so ridiculous. Like, of course, that's not true. But if it were true, wouldn't you be super worried about it? And once the athletes realize that, they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Then there's some validation there. It just automatically calms them down. They're like, okay, I see you're right. That is really unreasonable that if I miss one shot, it means I have no value in my life or it means I'm not good enough. And then we can actually work on what does a missed shot actually mean? It just means you missed a shot. That's it. It doesn't mean anything about you as a person. And so I think as we, like I said, disentangle some of those barriers, then naturally the confidence that they have inside of them, it just has room to grow and shine.
Now, it crossed my mind also. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast yet, but actually, that's exactly what happened to me when I started mindfulness meditation at 29. Basically, during my first mindfulness retreat, after 4 or 5 days, I realized something that I had never seen in my mind, that I was putting pressure on myself for everything I did. Like every phrase that came in my mouth, every body movement was constant. What are people thinking about me? And that's also the power. Mindfulness, there's 100 ways to define it, but it's turning on that inner light. And once you see, just I had never seen those thoughts. And then when I started seeing it, it was tough because it was nonstop. But as like you said, as you keep seeing it, just seeing it, something transforms. And you stick with it with practice. But so yeah, thank you so much for all that. So we've talked a lot about thoughts coming through our minds, self-critic. What about emotions? What about the emotion of stress, of anxiety, of anger, sadness?
There's something in the, I don't know who first made up these phrases in the compassion, self compassion, mindfulness world, someone in there. Name it to tame it and feel it to
Mm,
heal it. And so
mm, hmm.
I think
Exactly.
one of my, I don't know if y'all have heard of the app called How We Feel.
Nope.
It's newer, maybe in the last couple of years. They got a bunch of the top emotion researchers together to put together this app. It's awesome. I recommend it to everyone because it does a couple things. One, it can you can build check-in points because one challenge with athletes or people in general is sometimes we don't recognize the emotions we're feeling until they're really really big. And then once they hit us, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling burnt out, you can trace it back of like, oh yeah, 4 days ago, my coach said this thing to me, or you can kind of pile up everything that led to this explosion. And so one, it can help you stop and check in. The other thing is it can help you know what you're actually feeling. So it kind of categorizes them into pleasant and unpleasant, and then high or low energy emotions. And so this has been something that's been really helpful for me because me growing up, I just labeled everything as anger and frustration. That's it. There was no sadness. It was just anger and frustration. And so for me, whether it's these more pleasant emotions or not, you can see the nuance in them. And I think that is so important first in this building awareness around emotion because this happens all the time where athletes think that they're stressed, but they're actually feeling hurt,
Hmm.
right? Or they're feeling discouraged, but actually they're really anxious. They're nervous about something. And depending on the emotion you're feeling, you're going to do something different about it, right? If I'm nervous, I'm going to do something different than if I'm angry or if I'm sad. And so I think that the first step is name it. What is showing up for you and understanding it a little bit more. The other thing I think, along with this understanding, athletes tend to be quick fixers. I tend to be this too, right? We feel an unpleasant emotion. We're like, how do I fix? How do I make it go away? I don't want to feel stressed anymore. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to feel anxious. Just make it go away. And this is similar to the turn. Can we turn towards that emotion? What is it? What is it worried about? Why is that anxiousness showing up? Is there something that's helpful about it? And then we can figure out how do we want to work with it? Do you need to talk it out? Do you need to journal it out? Do you need to do some meditation? Do you need to feel it in your body? Do you need to put your hands on your heart? Do you need a hug? Like what are some of these more grounding tools that can help you process through the emotion, not just ignore it or let it blow up and then die down.
Hmm. To me, there's a big component also of um, yeah, leaning towards it and really, really, really accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like at no point trying to push it away because that's just going to make it worse. And then to me, it's really coming back to the body and awareness of the body, being with it in the body. I don't know if that's something that also you
Totally.
work with.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah, we have one exercise working. We're in the reset workbook, or in the reset program of working with difficult emotions, and it is that what
Hmm.
is showing up for you, and and often it's multiple things. I think that's one of the biggest things I see as well is remember that the critic sees everything zoomed in, and discomfort is the same way. So when we feel an emotion, we might just be like, I am sad. It's everything in me.
Yep.
I am all sad.
Yep.
But there's one little shift of even this is one of my like favorite tools of those kind of
Hmm.
like quick fixes, we'll say, is just say part of me is feeling sad.
Yeah.
And just by compartmentalizing it a little bit, be like, oh, there is part of me that's feeling sad. Why is it feeling sad? And now it's in front of you. You can see it. You can ask it questions. And you can step back and be like, well, what else am I feeling? Well, part of me is feeling, like a little anxious. There's part of me that's feeling really grateful. And now it becomes it's not about making it smaller necessarily. It's actually just about zooming out and having perspective, a more balanced perspective.
And what helps, yeah, totally. That's also how I like to work with it. And also, again, like feeling where it is in your body, to me,
Yeah.
that helps a lot. Like for me, it's a lot in the stomach. Well, that's where it is. My shoulder's good. My, you
Hmm.
know. So yeah, yeah, that helps also to go in the
Yeah,
way
and
you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, and I think once you identify where you're feeling it in your body, I feel a lot of tension in my chest with a lot of my
Hmm.
emotions, because then we can work on the other side, right? You can do some deep breathing and try to relax that area, not necessarily just to like solve it, right? But just be like, oh, I'm
Yep.
really tense right here. Oh, well, maybe taking some deep breaths will do this. Or my heart is racing. Oh, great, let's take some deep breaths. Or my back is knotted up from stress. Well, maybe I should get a massage and like work from the physiological side, because it works both ways. Even just going back to what you were saying before, Axel, of the hand on your shoulder, like that gesture of comfort or whatever encouragement can calm our bodies down. So we can work from the thoughts, we can work directly with the emotions, or we can work with our bodies physiologically to they all go together.
If someone, an athlete, let's say a basketball player, he's doing everything that we said, we talked about, for himself or for herself, and yeah, she's trying or he's trying to do everything, all the techniques or the tools, and he still feels the pain in his mind or in his body. What can we say to that person? Is it like at some point we need to tell them pain is inevitable?
It's a great question. I think it depends on the situation, and I think there can be so much power in connection and in relationships. And I think if there is a particular that I say this with parents and coaches all the time, where there is some sort of tension here, right? Like they're struggling. I would say one, asking them outside of the situation and like when they're just feeling normal and having a conversation of, hey, when you're really struggling and you're feeling that pain, what would be helpful for you to hear? from me? Because they might know, not in the moment. In the moment, they're probably in too much of a threat state. They aren't going to be able to come up with something that would be helpful for them. But I think having a conversation outside, because it does two things. One, it helps them know that you really care about them. Two, it empowers them to figure out the answer for themselves because it's going to be different for everybody. Because there is a time where, like in sports, we have this just grind it out, tough it out. There's a time for that. There's a time where we got to push and we just got to accept the pain and we got to move on. And there's some times where the pain is trying to tell us something and it means we need to shift something. And I don't know that there is a blanket statement that we can say, in this exact situation, you got to power through, and in this situation, you actually need to take a break. But I do really believe that we do have the answers, and if we can have someone have a conversation with us outside, then we can usually come up with it. The other thing I will add to that, though, is that we have to also be aware of power dynamics. So if it's a coach talking to an athlete, there is an automatic power dynamic. The athlete, depending on their relationship with you, might just be telling you what you want to hear. Same with the parent, right? Because there is some sort of connection. That is a really huge benefit of having an outside person, like a mental performance coach or sports psychologist or whatever, because I don't get to decide that player's playing time. I don't get to put them in timeout, right? I just get to have conversations with them and we can dig deep and we can do some of these practices so that they can uncover what they actually need and then we can help them communicate that to their coaches or parents or peers or whatever.
So, yeah, you're referencing Thich Nhat Hanh, the very famous Zen master who brought mindfulness here in the West, and he has a very powerful calligraphy and saying that is no mud, no lotuses. So the lotus represents joy, love, happiness, success, whatever, and the mud is the suffering. And if you take away the mud, you take away the lotus. And that, I mean, I meditated on that for a long time because like we were talking about, like we just want the lotuses. It's really really tough to accept the mud. But now what I've seen is that it's going meeting the mud, like seeing my own sufferings, like my past sufferings. I can honestly say that they're treasures because understanding my suffering makes me understand myself, made me. And when you understand yourself, Thich Nhat Hanh has another famous calligraphy is understanding is love. And it's not like understanding is part of love, it's understanding is love. And so when you understand yourself, then compassion, love generates naturally. And then when you understand yourself, you understand your suffering, like you said about connection. You understand the others. And this understanding is part of what frees your mind, not freeze when you're cold, but to be more free. Um, and so, yeah, that's so for me now, like suffering is always uncomfortable. It's like going in, like in a cold tub. It's like going in the freezing lake here in Lausanne in the winter. It'll never be comfortable, but there is really true liberation, beauty to it. Like it's part of it. I know because I go a lot of mindfulness retreats in Plum Village. And I remember one of the Buddhist monks, he was like, when he was a younger monk, he went to Thich Nhat Hanh and crying, and he said, "Teacher, like, can't we just have the lotuses? Do we really need the mud?" And like, so the Zen master he was crying, and the Zen master just smiled at him, like, it's part of life.
This is where mindfulness to me is so huge, so game changer to me. And because, like you taught me, Jackson, in mindfulness, first, if I'm not wrong, you need to see it. You need to see yourself, see your thoughts, see how you feel. Then you need to accept, really accept what you're feeling, what you're taking. And then, to me, the last one is the most important. You need to take care of it. And I feel like when you have, let's say, when you suffer, when you have a pain, because let's say you had a bad game, a really bad game, and everyone put so much pressure on you. First, I would So, like you told me, I would see it. Okay, I feel bad. I feel sad. I feel some guilt. Then I accept. And where I was able to have a better perspective is when you taught me. Then you need to take care of it. And then, to me, take care of it is like putting, like you said, Ashley, good intention, good like positive mindset, positive talk. So to me, like this is this is one of the game changer. The this philosophy.
Yeah, and I think that last point, both in the mindfulness and the self-compassion world, where it is first that acknowledgement and acceptance, self-compassion will add in the kind of like this reassurance, normalizing, yeah, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel disappointed. It's okay to feel discouraged. It's normal. Everyone makes mistakes. And then this self-kindness piece of, what how do I take care of it? For me it's like these it's two pieces. How do I take care of it? I got to encourage myself and I have to actually do something differently. Like I remember when I was playing basketball and I was a shooter and I was in a slump and it was terrible, and my teammates just be like, it's okay, Ash, just keep shooting. And I was like, no, it's bad advice. I shouldn't keep shooting. I should do something different. But I just kept shooting because I was trying to listen to them. I was people pleasing. But I think in those moments where it's like, yes, I'm struggling. It's okay. It happens. Best players in the world struggle sometimes. You know what? Like you've gotten through it before. You're gonna come back from it. Probably you should make this adjustment. Let's shoot some pull-ups or focus on your follow through or keep your elbow in. And I think that is something that is so key for me of how do I be kind to myself and hold myself accountable is you do just that. You encourage yourself and you do something different. And that could be in any situation. It could be with procrastination, it could be with mental health, it could be communication, it doesn't matter. How do I acknowledge it? You got to acknowledge it, normalize it, boost yourself up, make an adjustment.
So the podcast and what we do with Excel is called Focus, Freedom, and Flow. So we've kind of talked about the focus, which is the awareness. We've talked about the freedom, kind of freeing your mind. Can we talk maybe a little bit about the flow? So does learning how to fail, because that's what nowadays, athletes, musician, performers are looking for, like the concept of flow. Does learning how to fail, from your experience, help athletes be more in the flow of games and mastering their, abilities?
Absolutely. I think because it makes you more resilient. And there's so much emphasis in sports on being perfect, right? How do I eat the right things? How do I put my socks on in the right order? How do I do like we have these routines and superstitions. In sports we love superstitions, right? And it's all geared towards like setting yourself up for perfection. And that is helpful, and also like how many times is game perfect? It just doesn't happen. And so I see so many athletes being overly rigid sometimes, but by acknowledging failure instead of saying this is the only pathway I can be to be successful in this narrow 2 inch runway, we're now expanding it. Even if I ate this right before a race, I think I can be just fine. I know that even if something crappy just happened at school, I can still perform well. And so what happens is you're building your resilience and your confidence in not just I can perform, but I can perform under all these conditions. Then you're not phased in the same kind of way. Like, it's making me think of Michael Phelps. I don't know if you've heard that story when he was swimming and then his goggles filled with water, but he was prepared for it because he had practiced those kinds of things before. And so I think as we set up athletes, like for example, I had a tennis player that I was working with, and they were struggling with their shots, and so one of their assignments outside of our sessions was to like hit with their opposite hand, lift right before going out to hit so your muscles are really fatigued, be really, really tired, eat something that you wouldn't normally eat. Like all these different routines that you can actually, by disrupting them, then you get more confident in your ability to perform no matter what happens. And then, of course, you're able to enter a flow state because you're not phased by as many obstacles that are thrown your way, which is a really nice feeling to have.
not really an anecdote, but I realized I coach one kid. He's probably 9 years old, and we would do a workout, and then he will, let's say, shoot a free throws, and at some moment he will miss all his shots, and I realized in him after, like, let's say he will miss like 5 shots in a row, he would just take the ball and do like a crazy shot, you know, out of nowhere. And inside of me, I want to say, oh, what are you doing? Like, stay focused. But then I realized there is something that he's doing natural. Like, he just wants to do something crazy, just to, like you said, Ashley. So I truly believe in this. Like, sometimes just do something different. Like, don't be too rigid, and then go back to your focus. Sometimes it's really helpful.
Yeah, there's sometimes I had met with a guy who founded a anxiety institute, and he like has people fail on purpose. So whatever their nerves are, maybe it's social anxiety, and so he'll have them in their sessions together, like do kind of weird things, like go to a restaurant and ask for something that's not on the menu, or like order one thing at a time and get back in line. It's like really uncomfortable, but like not harmful. And so you're like actually leaning into the anxiety. And I've done that with sports too. Like even for me, if I start to feel, anxious, maybe I'm playing with a new group of people or something like that, and maybe I feel a little nervous, and I'll say to myself, just miss your first shot on purpose. Which sounds so weird, but we're so
Mm-hmm.
afraid of messing up. We're so afraid. And then I think, well, that's stupid. I might as well just try. But it suddenly lowers the pressure down. So whereas before it's like, I have to be perfect if they're gonna pass me the ball and blah blah blah. And it's like you can actually just be like average, and sometimes let yourself be above average, and sometimes let yourself be below average. But so often we set our expectations for perfection, and so it's like when you have this amazing game, you're like, cool, that was satisfactory. Like, good job, you were normal even though you were amazing. And so I think some of it is that too, of just like, can we take the power away from these things we're so afraid of and miss a shot? And when you do it on purpose, then you're looking for reactions, and people are just like, yep, you missed. It's not that big of a deal. But when you do it like you're trying so hard, then you're so worried, you're so anxious. And so, anyways, I think sometimes just doing something a little different can be really valuable.
Yeah, I think being too rigid, it's not good. I remember when I was young, my brother would coach me individual workout, and one day he said, "Okay, you have to score 15 mid-range shots in a row with a shooting gun for 2 hours. Score
Oh
15
wow.
in a row." And I think I think that's a waste of time. Sometimes if you can't do the task for too long, like, not I'm not saying give up, but do something else and come back later. Don't be too rigid. Don't be like, I have to finish even if it has to take me 3 days. I don't think it's really effective.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
agree.
Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
um, Ashley, so mental training is really fine line with mental health and all that. After all we've discussed, are there other challenges that you see in a lot of athletes that are not talked about enough yet in the sports world? Because we know about stress, we know about, dealing with some emotions, but are there some issues that you think should be more talked about?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is eating disorders and disordered eating. I think, especially in particular sports, that is very normalized, and along with body image type things. So I think that is a big one that I'm not equipped to know all the answers to it, but I do think that
Yeah.
it needs to be talked about more because it is such a source of shame. And then I think the other piece, just in general, when we think about resourcing these athletes, is mental training is, at least in the US, it's getting bigger, and people are realizing, okay, yes, this is a huge part of their game. How do we help these athletes level up? And I think, on this kind of crux of mental health as well is, I have a lot of conversations with athletes, and we're not even talking about sports, but it's affecting their performance so much. Breakups,
Yeah.
divorces, addictions in families. And so I think that as humans, we're going through a lot, and athletes are people first. And so just recognizing that providing support in terms of, mental performance and mental training, it's not just about sports. It's these skills, like I've worked with athletes, and we're talking about the inner critic and the inner coach. And then they open up about abuse, and they're able to use these skills that they've learned for sport, and then they're healing their own traumas and things like that. So I think that yes, there are some kind of like blurred lines here, and whatever the pathway is for the athletes, let's meet them there.
And also, what's the distinction maybe you see on the biggest challenges between men in sports and women in sports? I love how it seems like sports for women in the US, like the WNBA, is really growing, blossoming, and that's awesome. And in that mental training space, do you see something different, like different challenges for men and women?
Yeah, I think there's more similarities than there are differences, actually. And I think that, especially in the athlete space, I think outside of sports, maybe, men and women, and that's also just a dichotomy. There's a lot of people in between. But just like there might be bigger differences, but because sports are like a male dominated arena, right? They were created for men, and now, thankfully, we've realized that women are interested and good at this too. And so I think that a lot of these ideals and cultural norms are actually pushing male and female, or men and women athletes, more similar than they are different. And so the one thing that I would say seems to be different is, again, a cultural piece of the women are allowed to feel emotions and men are not. Men are supposed to be angry, and they're supposed to be stoic, and there is pressure in that sense. So I think there are some differences, of course, but also, like, I have plenty of, men who are coming and talking with me and have tears, right? And I have plenty of women who don't cry and they hate crying, and that's not it as well. So I think that there's actually more similarities than there are differences, but there might be some additional barriers for particular topics, like eating disorders, for example. Women might be more likely to come out and talk about it than men would be.
If athletes could change one thing in the way that they think about failure, what would it be?
I'm going to give you four one things. I think one would be pause before personalizing. And what I mean by that is we're really good at making up stories about what failure means about us. And I just did an interview actually for an overcoming injury course with a psychologist, Jonathan Adler, and he says you're both the main character of your story and the narrator. And so I think, I get to decide what one bad shot means about me. I would like it to mean nothing, right? And so just pause before personalizing, see what that critic is trying to say to you, and then you get to decide what it means. It's just one bad shot. The other thing is seeing the gray. We're so conditioned to see things in black and white. I'm good or I'm bad, right? I missed this shot, or I'm amazing or I'm not. And I think just seeing the in between. I see this with track athletes a lot, right? It was a good race or it was a bad race. But when you break it down, it's like, well, what does a good race mean? How was your start? How was your kick? How was your mindset? How was your preparation? And so seeing the nuance in failure is really, really important, because nothing is black and white. You're not bad at it. It's just new, right? You're not bad at it. It's just new. And sometimes when I was coaching high school basketball, we would be doing ball handling drills and no one would be messing up, which means that they weren't trying hard enough, right? And so when you're training, you want to be failing. Like, can you actually see failure not as I'm bad at something, but this is new and it's something I'm getting better at, which would be that last thing, seeing failure as an opportunity to grow and learn. It can still be uncomfortable, and it's actually making you stronger if you let it, if you resource yourself, if you boost yourself up, and if you make adjustments.
I mean, I feel like, especially in basketball, for other sport, it might be a little bit different, but like basketball, if you shot like 38 out of 100, you still made 38 shots, which is 38%, which is a good percentage, right?
Yeah.
but you also missed a lot from that
Yeah.
100 shots. So you have to be willing to fail to be successful. Like it's part of the game. Like it's actually part of the game to fail in basketball. In other sport, it might be different, but basketball, like it's really a part of the game, and I believe that we should teach that from a little bit sooner to the young people, to the young guys and young girls,
Hmm.
Yeah.
because like when I when I grew up, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. Yeah, like missing shots, failing actually, it's part of the game. Like you have to miss, you have to, you know. So yeah, it makes sense. Thank you
Yeah.
for what you say.
With one of the volleyball teams I was working with early on in my career, they were like, literally, no one scores until someone messes up. Like volleyball, tennis, someone has to mess up in order for a point to be scored. And basketball might be similar, right? But sometimes you can play perfect defense and they just make a good shot on you. And so, but still, yeah, it is a game of failure. Sports are about failure. They wouldn't be fun. There would be no excitement if there was no failure or stress and anxiety. And we don't want to be overwhelmed. So I get that too, right? How can we manage it so it is that we are growing without burning out and without being overwhelmed.
I have one coach who told me that. I don't remember who told me that when I was a pro, but someone told me that yeah, basketball is a game of failure, and the yeah, for sure the teams who do the less failures wins, but we still have to fail, so I think it's a huge thing, like failing in
Yeah.
sport.
Well, and it's interesting too. Like you can have that perspective. I think both are true. Like the one who messes up the least or the one who does the most right. And depending on where you're at, because sometimes athletes are so over focused on fixing mistakes, right? I just have to be better at this, I have to be better at this, and they're over focused on their weaknesses instead of what are the things I'm really, really, really good at, right? Like I've gotten much better at rebounding, but like I'm not a strong rebounder. So if I'm beating myself up and I'm just like, you just gotta rebound, Ash, you just gotta do it, I'm gonna be discouraged and I'm not gonna be focused on my strengths. If I'm like, yo, I'm gonna play lockdown defense, I'm gonna be a great passer, and I'm boosting up my teammates, probably I'm gonna rebound better automatically because I'm feeling more energized from these things that I'm really, really good at. And so I think again, working from both ends, how do we limit mistakes? Yes, and how do we do more things right? And focus on those things we're doing right instead of just zooming in and focusing on all of our errors.
What's also really interesting about your reset program is that there's been, I think, research on it. And so maybe can you talk a little bit about that and what has the research shown?
Yeah, Jackson, we got some new things fresh. We got some new things coming.
Oh, nice.
So
On
I'm
the
super.
Focus Rhythm Flow podcast.
Yeah, that's right. This is fresh. This is the first time I'm saying it out loud with someone.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the reset program when I first developed it with tested it with college athletes, over 250 college athletes, improved their well-being, right, less depression, anxiety, and stress, and improved their ability to cope with challenges, and it was improving their performance. Now we have research out of the UK, out of Iran, also showing improved performance, improved resilience, improved motivation. And then the newest one that I'm excited about was with some high school athletes, and they measured cortisol levels. So, cortisol being the stress hormone. And so, the group that went through the reset program not only responded better to stress psychologically, but also physiologically they had less cortisol, which is massive, right?
Yeah,
Meaning that when they were, after
awesome.
they'd gone through the program, they were put into a stressful situation and they had less of that stress hormone. They were able to manage it better, which is huge. I'm really excited to have
Wow,
that. That's a big one.
awesome. How long is the reset program? Like, if people listening to this are really here in Switzerland, are really interested in that, can they somehow join the reset training? And like, how big of a training is it?
Yeah, yeah, they can. So on my website, failbettertraining.com, we've got a fully online version. So you can just go and sign up. You can get the workbook anywhere. It's on Amazon. And so on my website, if you wanted to start with that of seeing what it's about, the if I'm working with a team live, it's 6 sessions. So the first
Okay.
3 sessions are focused on understanding the inner critic and how to work with it. The last 3 sessions are about building up that voice of the inner coach, and each session is about an hour. And then, I mean, if people are interested in doing that one-on-one as well, we can make it as long or as short as we need to. There's a lot of flexibility there, but that's kind of the basic, real basic one-liner outline of it.
And maybe we've talked a lot, but the most important thing is to practice. So to finish out the this podcast, would you agree to that we do a little exercise, that you guide us on a little maybe
Yeah,
exercise that feels right now to you?
yeah, yeah. So I'll guide you through. We've kind of talked around this already, so I'll guide you through what I call the resilient reset. This can either be done as a meditation if you would like. I'll kind of lead it as that. It can also just be a written exercise. So if you feel like prefer to write, you're welcome to do that as well. But I need you to pick a particular challenge, get something in your mind that you want to work with. Not something too large, but just something that creates a little bit of stress in your body. Maybe it's missing shots or coaching stress, whatever you've got. And what I want you to do, if you want to close your eyes, you're welcome to close your eyes. Or like I said, you can write. Just take a nice deep breath and see if you can recognize what emotion is most strongly associated with this difficulty. Just labeling it as frustration, it's discouragement, anxiousness. And just say to yourself, using this phrase, part of me is feeling blank. Part of me is feeling frustrated. Next, we're going to go with connection. See if you can find some reminder that this is normal. It's normal to feel this way. Other athletes struggle too. This is a little bit of reassurance and validation, recognizing that you're not alone. Now we want to boost ourselves up a little bit with some encouragement. Think about what would a really good coach say to you in this situation, or your inner self or your future self. What do you need to hear to feel more confident? Is it as simple, you got this? Maybe it's personalizing it with your name. Ash, you've been through hard stuff before. See if you can just let that resonate with you, feel it in your body. And then lastly, we're going to give ourselves some productive feedback. What adjustment or change could you make to improve your performance or your ability to cope with this challenge? Is it a technical adjustment? Is it talking it out with someone? Is it remembering your motivation, your why? What do you need to improve? And then to cap it all off, if you feel comfortable, see if you can find some kind of gesture that reinforces this strength and encouragement. Is it putting a hand on your chest? Is it a hand on your shoulder? A little self-hug? Try something that feels comfortable to you. And then take one more nice deep breath to let it really sink in.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love
Thank you,
those kinds of
Ashley.
exercises. It helped me on a
Good.
situation that went on today. So thank
Good.
you. Thank you so much. So much. You guys, in a way, connecting with some people in the US, you're leading the way, I think, for us and showing us the way. And it's a big source of inspiration and help and support, even with an ocean between us. But so thank you so much. Really appreciate the time, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate all that you're doing. Don't worry, your up's gonna get there. Find the ways to make it make sense. Given this culture, I think it's just a matter of time.